learners to the course of Basics of Economics, and now we are going to take up the first chapter, chapter number 1, which is talking about basic concepts in economics. Now, whenever we study a specific subject, we should definitely know its foundation, the concepts, the definitions, and then move ahead in understanding that particular topic or that subject in detail. So this is what we're going to understand about economics in this chapter, that is the basic concepts connected to economics. In today's world, if we look around us, there are many things which we speak of and which we see around us that is basically partly connected to specific sciences. Like you say, okay, there is gravitational force, then there is wind force, there is temperature, then there are chemical bondings, there are metals and other things, and then there is electronics, electrical equipments, and so on. And all these are functioning on some arithmetical accuracy, correct? And then we also see people believing in something, they are worshipping God, they are worshipping unknown things. Then they also have their own desires, or they have their own dreams and ambitions and certain things which are not so calculated, right? And when it comes to maths, we say it's perfect. 2 plus 2 is 4 always. But when we talk about people, their mindset, the human behavior, it will change in different situations. It will vary in different situations. So there are different sciences which cater to this type of things around us, and to study those things, to study those topics which are going on around us. And so the first type of science which is designed for this purpose is what we call as natural sciences. Now, these sciences are basically catering to, you can say, empirical evidences. That means they are proven under laboratory conditions, under controlled conditions. They can be proven with experimentation with a specified group of people. And whereas there are other types of sciences where we call them as social sciences, which are not so empirical. They may have some amount of empirical database, but it is more connected to human behavior, more connected to understanding subjective things rather than very objective things. So natural sciences give you more objective things like maths, chemistry, physics, and so on. And if we talk about social sciences, these are more like psychology, sociology. Now, the third thing, which means we are talking about economics, because economics is also a social science. So, why is economics a social science? Well, if we look at economics, economics is basically connected to human behavior, management of resources, and many other things which we are going to learn ahead. But right now, you need to understand it is more connected to human behavior, the understanding of resources that humans have, and how they can be managed in the best possible manner. Now, to understand this more in detail, we are going to take up the next part, that is what we call as the meaning of economics. Now, there are various governments and various, you can say, economists, and there are people who have actually stated their definition, their terminologies about economics. And so, we are going to understand different types of these to get a key idea, to get an understanding of how economics works. So the first thing we are going to look at is, where did this word economics at all come from? So it is basically originating from Greek language. It's a Greek word basically, where it is called as okonomia. Okonomia, which means basically household management or management of the household. So economics was referred to as the queen of social sciences by Paul Samuelson, because this is something connected to human behavior, and basically human behavior which, as I told you, talking about wants and the resources. Now take an example to understand this. If you go for shopping with an amount of 10,000 rupees in your pocket, you go to the shop, you see different dresses, you see different clothing brands and things like that, and you select 10. Each of them costs maybe 10,000 rupees. So your total billed amount, if you buy everything, would come to 1 lakh rupees. But you don't have that money, right? Your wants, your desires are 10 dresses, but you don't have the resources. You have the resources of only 10,000. So now what you need to do, you have to make a choice. So economics is all about choices of usage of resource. In this case, that resource was money, which is 10,000 rupees, limited amount available. And so the resource has to be used to buy the things which will fulfill your want of buying the dress. So that want of buying the dress has to be shrinked to fit into your budget, right? And it should be the best one. So if you have selected 10 dresses, of which one or two are which can be used on a daily basis, office use, and they are also good looking, whereas there are some dresses which can be used only once in a while on occasional basis, party dresses, which one would you choose normally? You would say, okay, I wear a dress every day or on a regular basis, and that's more useful, isn't it? So if you have to go to office often and you are going there, you would naturally choose the dress which matches your requirement, which is which is basically the regular use dress, and so you would fit in that dress into your budget rather than buying a party wear which you would wear once in a while, once maybe in a year or so, right? So this is how economics works. It is talking about unlimited wants. If somebody says, okay, shop as much as you want, there is no limit to money, people will probably not stop shopping every day, they will keep shopping, right? So, but this is not possible. Even if we see the topmost industrialists, the businessmen, like if we talk about Bill Gates also has limited resources because he has to manage his money in such a way, maybe his budget or his resources huge as compared to what we have, but at the same time his resources on earth are limited. So this is how he too has to make decisions, make choices in his day-to-day life. So he may have to think of whether I buy two companies or three companies or one company, right? To fit in his budget of 100 crores at that point of time. So this is how things work for each and every person when we talk about unlimited wants and limited resources. Hope this concept is clear. So we switch to the next one where we are talking about the Indian situation where economics is viewed in the form of Arthashastra. So Kautilya was the one, or the learned person who designed economics in India long time ago. And this was called not economics, but it was called as Arthashastra. And what is this meaning? Artha means wealth and Shastra means science. So we are basically talking about wealth management science. So how wealth is created and how wealth is used. So it's same thing that economics is describing. Arthashastra and economics is one and the same thing, where we are again talking about usage of resources and there are wants against those resources. Of course, in case of Kautilya's Arthashastra, more focus was there on political economy. That means how states run the districts or the places, the entire states or whatever the case is, right? So his focus was a little broader, not on a household level, but on a broader level. Maybe it was designed for kings and rulers at that point of time. So basically, he said he had those key points where it was basically Arthashastra was something which was connected to the crucial role of state or the government, right? And the focus was on creation of wealth. So how can you bring in more wealth into the treasury of the state without harming the normal public? Just like we collect taxes today, that time also they used to collect taxes. So how can you gain more wealth in the government treasury so that you can make improvisation in the state or in the district or whatever, right? And how to fit in the efficient administrative machinery for good governance. So obviously he needed this wealth for what purpose? For the purpose of good governance, for the purpose of creating good administrative machineries. And so this is where we are talking about the Artha Shastra. Now, all these political ideas were combined in this book or in this particular part of Arthashastra for the purpose of the rulers, right? So this is how Indian situation we can see economics was used long back in the format of Arthashastra. Now we come to the classical economists who is Adam Smith. Adam Smith is somebody who has learned economics or who probably is learning economics should know about, because his name is repetitively used in economics, and he has put forth many theories and things and contributed a lot to economics. So he basically has given a definition which is more wealth oriented. So what he's talking, the most famous work of Adam Smith was an inquiry into the nature and causes of wealth of nations, which was in the year 1776. So inquiry into the nature and causes of wealth of nations. So how the nations actually create wealth, how it is actually gathered in the government treasury, and so on. And there he defined the science, economics, as the science of wealth. So very clearly he has given the definition which was based upon wealth oriented definition. So wealth creation more of is what is the focus was of Adam Smith when we are talking about economics. So how you can get more money, in short, right? So in his definition, if we have to pick up the key points for our learning, we can see that there was something connected to the laissez-faire, that is non-intervention of state or government. He didn't believe in the intervention of state or government in wealth creation. He focused more on capital and wealth accumulation by people, and he says nature's law in economic affairs. He was talking, finally he also talked about division of labor. So he said that okay, um, for growth purpose you need to divide the labor for different purposes in your home or in your locality, in your company, whatever the case may be, and with this division of labor you can actually work better. Now, in this particular chapter, we have two more definitions. One which we're going to talk about is of Professor Alfred Marshall, again another famous personality in economics. He is basically one who was the neoclassical economist, the new, like you can say, person who was in 1890. He had written a book which was named as Principles of Economics. And so this formed a real base of what we learn economics today. So Alfred Marshall's contribution is also huge in economics. Now, what he's defined economics, let's just read and understand. Economics is the study of mankind in the ordinary business of life. It examines that part of individual and social action which is closely connected with the attainment and use of material requisites of well-being. So again, what we are talking about? We are talking about wealth being got by people and wealth being used by people in the best possible way for their well-being. Okay. So if we see the key points of Marshall's definition, we are talking of study of ordinary man, and they are talking about economics is a behavioral science. So how these people are going to behave in their usual day-to-day life or whatever is what is economics all about. And it is talking about study of material welfare. So how you can use the resources that are available and in the best possible way so there is more welfare. And he said also, not just the study of wealth, but how wealth can be used for personal and social welfare. So, welfare is the focus. How you can use it for the best way for your own personal thing and your own, and also for the social welfare. Okay, so this is what his definition was talking about. Then comes the next person who is Lionel Robbins, and he also defined economics. And this is basically the most popular definition of economics, where he said he had talked about the scarcity oriented definition. So his book basically focused on the scarcity oriented part of economics. So, as in the earlier part I had discussed, I told you that every resource is scarce, right? Everything, even if you're talking about human labor, if you talk about experts in a particular field, they are limited, they would be scarce, and sometimes the demand of these people would be less than what you actually require, correct? So scarcity is something which was his focus, and he said economics is the science which studies human behavior as a relationship between ends and scarce means which have alternative uses. So very important word here is alternative uses. So there are ends, right, and there are means which will be satisfying those ends. So wants and the means to satisfy those wants exist, and basically here, though the resources are scarce, they also have alternative uses. Very interesting, isn't it? So if I have 10,000 rupees, I could buy clothing, I could buy a small maybe phone, I could buy maybe a hands free, I could buy something which is for kitchen equipments, whatever. So I could buy different things, or I could just take that 10,000 and invest in a mutual fund, right? So 10,000 rupees is scarce, it is limited, but it has alternative uses. This is very important in economics, and this is what he defined. Lionel's definition focuses on this part, this area, that economics is a science which studies human behavior as a relationship between ends and scarce means which have alternative uses. So if you see here, the key points of Robbins' definition: wants are unlimited, resources or means are limited, wants are gradable, that means you can prioritize, right? What you need first, second, third, this is what you can prioritize. And then these means or these resources which you have in hand have alternative uses, and you can choose your wants in priority, right? So if my priority right now is paying my hostel fees, then I will pay that first. If my requirement is making the payment towards an EMI, I will pay that. If my priority, I've met all these requirements and my priority now is buying a car, so that would be the first in the ranking, and so on. So you will have wants which are gradable, and the resources will have alternative uses so that it can fit into the requirement of wants, correct? So this part of chapter 1 ends here, which is talking about the definitions and the certain basic things about economics which can be handy and useful in the coming part of our study. Now the next part of our study, we are going to talk about the different branches of economics. So go to the next part of this particular chapter and learn that.